Welcome back. The title of this mini lecture is The Working Class in America's 19th Century. We're going to look at 5 things that you should know in order to start understanding the role that these individuals played. First off, artisan shops. When we talk about the working class in America, we're usually talking about a time period between the 1820s and 30s and the period after the Civil War. That's really the first industrial age in America. Prior to that age, most manufactured goods, if they're produced in the US or in the colonies, are made in small artisan shops where the systems of production very much so mimicked what existed in Europe at the time and in Europe since the Middle Ages. You had apprentices, journeymen, and master craftsmen that shaped and defined these kinds of shops, and the kind of culture that existed in them. Not only did it vary by what kind of good you're producing, so say a print shop versus a shop that made boots, it also varied by region and a number of other factors as well. Secondly, the thing for us to think about really is going to be a division of labor. These shops tended to place an emphasis on producing skilled master craftsmen in given fields. As work transforms in the 19th century, the emphasis is no longer on that. The division of labor means the taking of skilled occupations, very skilled occupations, and transforming work, breaking that emphasis into a new kind of work where different skills are needed. The third thing for us to think about then would be the transformation of infrastructure and technology in America in the 19th century. You can't have major cities with big factories and all these kinds of things without early transportation infrastructure changes. In order to have Chicago be a center point where lots of goods are being shipped to, or New Orleans be a center point where lots of things are being sent to, you need transportation infrastructure that can help to facilitate this. You also need new kinds of technologies that can help to transform the kinds of agricultural work that is done at the time. This will have any number of effects. John Deere and his plows, for example, right, will transform the kinds of work that is done on farms and the number of individuals needed to work them. They'll then flock to cities and, of course, need jobs themselves. Another fourth thing for us to be thinking about is a growth in the size of workplaces, right? Manufactories and factories by the 1840s and 50s and 60s are starting to grow out from being those small artisan shops into groups of dozens and dozens of workers working together in textile mills and in other industries around the country. Part of this is predicated on the kinds of supply chains that they are able to create. So, for example, in a place like Chicago, where the stockyards open up at the end of the 1860s, it is the use of those rail lines throughout the country that helped to facilitate Chicago becoming a hub for that kind of industrial production. The fifth thing, or the last thing for us to be thinking about, really is the concept of class. What do we define class as being? When we think of the working class, what metrics do we use to define it? In our minds, does it have to be a factory worker? Today in the 21st century, is it someone who works in retail or fast food? In the first half of the 19th century, those who worked in many of these kinds of jobs thought of class and did begin to organize themselves in what we now call unions. This is a process that begins in places like Philadelphia in the 1840s, and by the 1850s and 60s, of course, this would result in the creation of national unions, and as you see the explosion of industry, this is only going to grow. Thank you.